A million years ago, the world did not care about hope. It did not recognize mercy, fairness, or intention. The land stretched wide and silent beneath an unforgiving sky, shaped by heat, hunger, and endless struggle. There were no borders, no shelters built to last, no promises of tomorrow. Life existed only in the present moment, measured in heartbeats, breaths, and the thin line between survival and death. Every sunrise was uncertain, and every nightfall carried the possibility of never waking again. This was not a world built for comfort. It was a world governed by the oldest law of nature: endure or vanish. Across vast savannas and broken forests, early humans moved carefully through a landscape that watched them constantly. Predators did not sleep. The wind carried scents of blood and fear. Tall grass concealed eyes that calculated weakness, and rivers hid jaws older than memory. These humans were not rulers of the land. They were fragile beings surrounded by forces stronger, faster, and more patient than themselves. Their bodies bore scars from claws, teeth, and hunger. Their lives were short, and loss was common. Yet within this harsh reality, something extraordinary was quietly forming. Among these early humans, survival was never an individual act. Alone, a single human stood little chance against the world. Together, even the weakest could endure longer. This truth was not spoken or taught. It was learned through pain. Those who wandered too far were never seen again. Those who refused to share food weakened and disappeared. Slowly, instinct shaped behavior, and behavior shaped survival. Trust began not as a moral choice, but as a necessity. In this ancient world, tears were not symbols of weakness, they were signals. When a child cried, it was not only hunger or fear, it was a call that demanded response. When an adult mourned, the sound carried across the group, altering movement, silence, and vigilance. Grief became a warning that something valuable had been lost. Each death was a lesson written into memory. The group learned which paths led to danger, which waterholes killed silently, which shadows moved when they should not. Emotion, raw and unrefined, became part of survival itself. Food was the center of existence. Every decision revolved around finding it, defending it, or sharing it. Scavenging carcasses left behind by larger predators was dangerous but necessary. Stone tools were crude but effective enough to cut flesh from bone before competitors returned. Meat brought strength, but it also brought conflict. A group that failed to distribute food fairly risked collapse from within. Those who hoarded were watched. Those who shared earned protection. Trust was not kindness, it was insurance. Children grew surrounded by danger, learning fear before language. They watched adults scan the horizon, freeze at unfamiliar sounds, and run without hesitation. Play was rare and brief, often interrupted by the demands of survival. Yet even here, bonds formed. Children learned faces, voices, and the safety of proximity. These connections were fragile but powerful. A child protected today might be a hunter tomorrow. Investment in others, though unconscious, shaped the future of the group. Nature showed no favoritism. The strong fell to illness. The skilled were taken by surprise. Survival was not a reward for virtue. It was a consequence of adaptation. Storms destroyed shelter without warning. Drought turned fertile land into death traps. Fire, once feared, slowly became an ally, offering warmth, protection, and a rare sense of control in a chaotic world. But even fire demanded respect. Misuse meant destruction. Every advantage came with risk. Trust extended beyond humans. Observing animals taught vital lessons. Herds survived through unity. Solitary creatures died alone. Predators respected boundaries and hierarchy. Early humans learned when to stand ground and when to retreat. They learned that nature did not hate them. It simply followed rules older than life itself. Understanding those rules was the difference between persistence and extinction. Loss was constant. Mothers buried children beneath shallow earth. Companions vanished during hunts. Elders weakened and slowed, becoming burdens the group struggled to protect. There were no rituals carved in stone, no written records, only memory and emotion. Yet even without words, meaning existed. Death was not ignored. The group paused, movement slowed, silence followed. Something beyond instinct was taking shape. Empathy emerged quietly, without ceremony. An injured member was not immediately abandoned. Sometimes they were carried. Sometimes food was brought to them. These actions had no guarantee of reward, yet they continued. Groups that practiced this survived longer. Cooperation reduced risk. Shared vigilance increased awareness. Emotional bonds strengthened cohesion. What began as instinct evolved into something more complex, a primitive form of morality shaped entirely by survival. The law of nature was absolute, but it was not simple. Strength alone was not enough. Speed failed without strategy. Intelligence mattered, but only when shared. Groups that fractured under pressure disappeared. Those that adapted socially endured. Tears, once meaningless biological responses, became tools of communication. Trust, once a gamble, became a foundation. Nature itself selected not just for bodies, but for behaviors. 1 million years ago, the human story was not written in triumph. It was written in endurance, in quiet acts of sharing, in staying close to the fire, in waiting for the slowest to catch up, in learning when to fight and when to flee. Civilization did not begin with cities or tools. It began with understanding that survival was stronger when carried together. Nightfall brought fear. Darkness belonged to predators. Phytolite flickered against watchful eyes. The group huddled close, listening to distant roars and unseen movement. Sleep came lightly, interrupted by alertness. Dreams, if they existed, were likely shaped by danger. Yet morning returned, and with it, another chance. Life continued not because it was easy, but because it was relentless. These early humans did not know they were shaping the future. They did not know their choices would echo across millions of years. But every act of trust, every tear shed for another, pushed humanity forward. Nature tested them endlessly, and those who learned its laws survived to pass on something more valuable than strength: connection. 1 million years ago, the world was cruel, but it was honest. It demanded awareness, adaptability, and unity. It punished arrogance and rewarded cooperation. Tears did not change nature, but they changed humans. Trust did not break the law of survival, it fulfilled it. And from this brutal balance, humanity took its first steps towards becoming something greater than instinct alone. This was life 1 million years ago, not a story of dominance, but of endurance, not a tale of power, but of connection, a world where survival depended not just on muscle or speed, but on the fragile, evolving bond between beings who learned, slowly and painfully, that they were stronger together.